Hello, my name is Omar Ali, and this is my clothing brand, Street Slaves. Well, Street Slaves is everyday life. That's what it means. It means if you get up and you go to work every day, the average person, you're working for a corporation. If you're not working for a corporation, you're living on the streets and you're doing street things. Therefore, we're saying street slaves, but the goal is to say, we are not street slaves. That's not what we want to do. We are not the average person. You understand? That's what we're saying. Like I said, it's about everyday life. It's about just things that we do. Living in America. Just me living in America, and what I've seen, and going to work. Even myself, when I worked, going to work, or if you're not working, you're living on the streets. That's what it's about. Well, the name came about back in 2002 when I was in college, and I was, I used to do these like wild college parties, and I thought about it, and I just sat around and I said, you know what? I said, man, we go to work every day. I'm going to work. I think I was working at Wendy's at the time, and I was like, man, you know what? I'm going to work every day. I'm going to school. It's like, damn, it's like I'm a slave, like I'm a slave and out here, and that's how I came up with. Surprisingly, I got a lot of positive feedback about Street Slaves. A few years ago, I used to work in law enforcement, so I used to work in this prison, and the guys that was in the prison, I used to wear the shirt underneath my uniform, and a lot of the guys in prison, they loved the idea. They was like, okay, yeah, I got a lot of feedback from a lot of older guys, older people that way older than me, 40 and 50 years old. They tell me they love it. A lot of college kids in the early 20s, somewhere around there, they love the idea. So yeah. Like I said, I had this brand been around for about 20 years. Since about 2002. It's over the years, a few of my closest family and friends and different cities. I actually did like a tour where I went to different cities myself, and I had a few guys with me and some of my children. We went to like Memphis, Chicago, Dallas, Atlanta, different cities, and we were just setting up and we were explaining, what this is, what Street Slaves is. Originally when I started, I got some feedback, from, it's always somebody's gonna say something bad, no matter what you do. Let me say that. So, but I got a little feedback about the name, maybe one or two people, but once I explained it to people, it was different. They was like, oh, okay, now that you explain what it is, okay, because I actually wrote it down. They were like, oh, I like that idea. I explained it I did an interview with the local news media, and once I explained it to them, they loved the idea, But just off the naked eye, if you see it, yeah, it's gonna sound negative. The goal right now is I'm trying to do more of awareness and like expansion. I want this to get out more than what it is, I want it to be kind of like when Tupac in the 90s when he came out with the Thug Life thing, and he was wearing the Thug Life t-shirts, and he was telling people, okay, this may sound negative, it's Thug Life, but he's using that, as in a positive light. It's, you don't focus so much on the image, but just focus more on the way what's the meaning behind the image, and that's the goal right there, to get that out there. So yeah. What's next is, like I said, we're gonna be doing a little radio with it. We're gonna be doing some radio. We got some of that in the works. Me and my wife, we're starting this. It's a nonprofit that we're working on right now. So that's next. Even with the Street Slaves movies, we're working on some movies in the works. So yeah, got some good things coming up with that. So. In 2020, when the pandemic started, no, I wasn't involved. I wasn't directly involved with it, but I was in Minnesota. I was kind of like, I was in and out of Minnesota because I was a truck driver at the time. So I was like in and out. I wasn't directly involved in the riots. I'm not gonna say I was, but I definitely was. I definitely was around. Yeah, it was crazy. I do know some people that was involved. My aunt actually lives there, and I have a lot of family and friends that live in Minnesota that were directly involved in that, So I wasn't surprised when it happened, that incident. And let me say this, that young man that got killed by the police, Daunte Wright, when he got killed by the police in Minnesota, that struck a nerve with me because what happened with him, the same thing happened to me when I first went to Minnesota in 2007. Yeah, and I got pulled over for having it was like a what do you call it, air freshener, dangling, and that's illegal, in that state, and people don't know that. I didn't know that, and they pulled me over and just the racial profile me, you know what I'm saying, and they let me go. I had my license and everything. I gave them my license. They were hoping I didn't have my license, but I did. So jokes on them. But yeah, that was a Minnesota. I wouldn't recommend. I don't know. It's really crazy there. I would say that. It's always been that way. So I'm not surprised with what happened in 2020 with George Floyd, with Daunte Wright. Not surprised. I mean, I'm a strong supporter of Black Lives. I'm gonna be honest. Well, let me take that back. I'm not a strong supporter, but I support something that's positive. You understand? If it's positive, if it's righteous, I'm with it. I'm not gonna say like I'm, but I mean it's cool. It's kind of, to me, it's kind of like, they somewhat picking up where, in this country where the Black Panthers left off, but they're not as, the Black Panthers were, when they started in the 60s in America, they were like they were a strong force, and the government didn't know how to handle it. You understand? And they were like out there, shotguns, everything, The Black Lives Matter, I mean, yeah, they're there, but I didn't see them as a stronger force as the Black Panthers, with Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, Little Bobby, a lot of those guys from the 60s. I didn't see them as a strong force. I mean, yeah, they're probably a stronger force because of the social media, because what the Black Panthers they didn't have was social media. And Black Lives Matter, it's everywhere. Social media, so yeah. I'm gonna say, I'm gonna say it's not militant, but we're more like it's militant in the mind. It's a mental thing, because street slaves, what that is everyday life. So it's not necessarily, strictly militant, because I'm not gonna say it's just for, people of color. I'm not gonna say that, because a white person can relate to this, or a Chinese person can relate to this. It's a systematic thing. It's plain and simple. Either you are, in America, in the UK, Nigeria, Africa, wherever you are, either you are working for a corporation or you are the corporation. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what it is. So it's not militant, it's militant minded, because you have to be like, well, this is what it is. I'm strong willed. You have to be strong minded. If you're running a business, be persistent with that, and don't switch it up. Just stay like that. If you switch it up and just say, oh, I'm gonna run a business for 3 years and then I'm gonna go here and I give up and do this. No, you know what I'm saying? Just keep it persistent. Building a brand means being persistent. Persistent. You have to stay persistent. So I'll say that. Well, I'm gonna say this. I'm not necessarily gonna say that Street Slayers went into politics. I think nowadays everything is, you have to watch what you say. But I will say this: it's like, to me, politics is a different type of ball game. It's different. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. No, I'm gonna say no. It's different. Politics is something where it's there. This is more like in your face. You know what I mean? Like, you have to. There's no way you can not relate to this. You know what I mean? Unless you live on a rock, especially if you live in America. There's no way. But yeah, so it's not political. No, it's definitely not political. Okay. So during the pandemic, when it started, and I think that was back in like 2020. I think I was in New York or something like that, training somebody, because I was, in my trucking business, and of course it hit everybody by storm, the whole pandemic thing, but the trucking business is one of the businesses that, and especially in America, that it's ongoing. Nothing slows down. So it really didn't change it. I mean, it may have slowed down the rates that we were getting a little bit. It may have decreased a little bit in the rates, but as far as like stopping, no, it was still rolling. Yeah, it was still rolling. I was doing in 2020. In summer 2021, I was in and out of the country, but in 2020, when I was here, I was doing like I was delivering like COVID tests all over, in the South, the West Coast, North. We were doing when the vaccines came, I started delivering the vaccines. There was a time where nobody can be on the road but truckers. And you had to have a piece of paper that says that you're a truck driver, a commercial driver, or the police was pulling you over. Yeah, and that was a crazy thing. But no, it didn't slow it down. It may have stopped it a little bit with the rates, but yeah, it didn't slow it down. It didn't slow it down. We were constantly moving. Yeah. Yeah. So with the nonprofit thing, it's called Ikeja for Fathers. Yeah, so Ikeja, I got that name. A lot of people don't know about that name unless you've been to Nigeria. So Ikeja is it's like a little city in Lagos. It's a little city in Lagos, a very fun place. You'll love it. But Ikeja for Fathers is it's an organization that we're starting that's committed for single fathers. For single fathers, because I can remember a time before I met my wife, I was a single father of my son. He's now 11, and in the beginning, I had him his whole life. You understand? So in the beginning, it was very hard for me. I remember that. The first 4 or 5 years of his life was hard because I didn't have any resources. Because in America, most resources, they go specifically for women. People don't, the resources, they don't think of, single fathers. Although I know a few people that were like me, men that raised a child by themselves without the women at all even involved. I know a few people, but people, these programs that they have here are only for women. I mean, it was so many times I got denied when I tried to get assistance from the government for my son, and I was denied several times. So I said, you know what? It's not for me. Yeah, so, and that's what made me think about that, because I know it's going to be more single fathers possibly, and it's possibly still are single fathers that was once like me. So that's where the idea came from. Yeah, so the case for fathers is what we're working on, and yeah, I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be dope because, like I said, it's strictly for that. I mean, I don't mind some women or whoever else, but I'm catering to the fathers. Like I said, I know a few people that are single fathers. I have a friend. He lives in New Orleans, and he's a lot older than me. He's like 55 or something, but he has a group that he started back in '98 called Fathers Advocacy. And when I met this guy when I lived in Memphis, he told me about his group, and what we did, me and him, it was just me and him, nobody else. We put both our money together, and we got a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. It was maybe about 15 kids, and we took them to the zoo. And me and him, we paid for all of these kids to go to the zoo. I think it was like 1 or 2 days in Memphis, when I lived in Memphis, Tennessee. Yeah, and this guy's all over the internet. He's a real political dude, and he like right now, last year I think he ran for like the mayor of New Orleans. His name is Byron Cole. And if he's watching this, what's up, bro? But yeah, and that's kind of like I got the idea from him, because I didn't get that idea, but I kind of like looked to him for that, because like I said, he's been doing it way longer than me. He's more political, him and maybe a few other people that I actually look up to, as far as in America, yeah.